right, hey everybody. Welcome back to Outside the Cinema, your weekly source for cult movie discussions. We're your hosts. I'm Bill. That's Chris. Say hi, Chris.
Hello.
Hello. If you're watching us on Twitch or if you're watching us on YouTube, or I think we're broadcasting in a bunch of places now. Riverside added some new they just updated a bunch of software. So we might be on the Facebook page too. I'm not sure. Not the group page, but we do have an Outside the Cinema page.
Okay.
So I don't know. Either way, we're back. It's another episode. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. This week on the show, a couple of I don't know. How would you explain these flicks, Chris?
One is oh jeez. Okay. One is an Amicus anthology. That one's easy.
Yep, that's easy.
And the other is sort of like a really high concept Twilight Zone episode.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So the flicks for this week are Vault of Horror, based on the EC Comics, put out by Amicus in 73, I think. And then the other film, early John Frankenheimer. So if you're a big Reindeer Games fan,
oh jeez, I forgot.
This is where he got his start. The Rock Hudson starring Seconds, which I'd never seen.
Me either. When
I'd heard about it. It's kind of its name shows up from time to time in those like underrated classic lists, but not nearly as much. After watching the film, I'm surprised it doesn't show up more.
Right.
That's not saying that it's good, but like I'm surprised it doesn't show more because you said it is actually a pretty high concept, smart film for a 1966 release.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool. It's cool, bro. All right, yeah. So catching up with things. Let's see. You can still watch Don't Forget to Leave as part of the Toronto Liftoff Film Festival. That is available until July 16th. You can stream it there. Please vote for us. If you watched the film and you enjoyed, vote for us. Also, you can give the film a quick review or a rating on IMDb and Letterboxd. That would actually help immensely. Also, we were also accepted into the Somerville International Film Festival, which will be screening, I think, right around the same time, 13th and 14th of July. I don't have the date yet, but so if you're in Somerville, Mass., you can check it out there.
Nice.
We're also in the Folkestone Film Festival. I don't have a lot of information on that. I know that's coming up also.
Where is that one?
That's in the UK somewhere.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, that's somewhere in the UK. So I guess that's the European premiere or the UK premiere. Not European, the UK premiere.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Also, our horror short Ouchie premiered this weekend as part of the Chattanooga Film Festival. I'm just a producer on that, but it's pretty cool. It's kind of high concept body horror stuff, directed by Kyle,
Nice.
And written by his friend Jeanette. So I was originally supposed to not only be the producer, I was also supposed to shoot it, but it was shot when I got sick last summer. So
okay.
Which I'm kind of bummed. Because it's a cool little story, and I would have loved to have been part of that. So keep an eye out for that. That's kind of out there too. I'll have more information on that. Yeah, I'm gonna be laid up with surgery in about 3 weeks. We were just talking about that, so we'll be pre-recording some shows for you guys ahead of time. So if you don't get a response from me on anything, if you reaching out via Patreon or whatever, that is why. Also, so if you have Patreon picks that you have sent, because we do have a few, we're gonna hold all them off until we come back later in the summer. Live when we're recording weekly, so probably like later in August. So if you don't hear your pick get covered immediately, don't worry, we'll get to it, I promise. I know Austin sent some stuff in, and then we had one or two other people send some stuff in too. So
Good.
that is what is going on with us. You can of course join our Patreon, and you can go to patreon.com/outside the cinema, and you can join us there. And help keep the show alive. Independent podcasting, unfortunately, is not free or cheap.
Nope.
That's actually not too bad, but still,
Right.
For us to sound good, we have to put some money into it.
That is true.
So it is true. Anything going on with you that we want to talk about here at the top of the show, or
Yeah, this is a weird thing. So remember we covered VHS, the one with
I do.
Oh shit! What was in it? Anyway, so
We've covered all
I had
of
said
them,
that
so.
I hated Ozzy's Dungeon. It was the worst piece of crap I'd ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've watched VHS a few times now, and I think my initial revulsion had a lot to do with the set dressing and the raw chicken and just the overall goopy sliminess of it. It's actually not bad. It's not the worst. I've come around on that, and
You're so fucking weird sometimes, man. I love you to death. It's just like for like 2-3 years or whatever since that one came out, you're like, that sucks.
Yeah.
I hate it. Now you're like, you know what? I guess it's not bad. After I watched it 30 times, I figured out I don't mind
like
it.
4. I just kind of pick a VHS sometimes and put it on a separate screen and just let it go. And I like that one because I think that's the one with the dude from Deadstream in it at the end on that last one. So, and then I had to make sure that the one Techno God, I had to make sure that was still the worst piece of shit in the whole movie, and it is. It really is.
I don't even remember. I mean, like I remember that it happened, but I don't remember what it was
Yeah,
about.
there was the one with the woman with the virtual reality, and then there was the underground pre-Mexican, pre-modern Mexican god that they find in the earthquake.
Yep.
Yeah, still that's the order of the order I don't like them is the iPhone one, then that one. Those I think are the two weakest ones. Even though there's a lot of effort and I can see a really good idea with the earthquake and how it was framed. No. So nothing serious this week. It's just that.
All right,
That's
cool.
the one thing I remember now.
Sweet. Which of these films do you want to talk about first?
I
You want to talk about Vault of Horror,
I would
or
like
you
to
want
get
to talk about
seconds out of the way.
Okay, all right. Let's see here. Do I have a trailer for it? I should. Let's jump on YouTube and see if there's a trailer for it, and hopefully it's not that Luke Perry bull riding one or
Oh,
whatever.
jeez, 8 seconds, yeah.
Seconds. What did we say this was? 66?
I think so, yeah.
All right. Oh, cool. Let's take a listen.
Mr. Hamilton?
Yes?
Listen very carefully.
I've been assigned to go over the circumstances of your death with
I have a gentleman here who wishes to leave the building.
Isn't it easier to go forward when you know you can't go back? Begin again all new, all different. Doc, it's a masterpiece.
I'm Nora Marcus.
I'm Tony Wilson.
Ultimately, we'll be called to face the Creator and render up our last account. It happens to all of us, sir.
There never was a struggle in the soul of a good man that wasn't hard.
As soon as these people leave, I'm going to attack you.
Why, Mr. Wilson, you dirty old man.
Interesting.
I didn't like
Seconds.
the A24 style trailer there.
Yeah, I think that's like a re-release trailer, maybe.
Makes sense, yeah.
Um,
I think that adds something to the movie that's not there.
yeah. Let's take a look at this one. See what this one sounds like. Oh, that sounds like an ad for. Sounds like an ad for Game of Thrones. Is what that one sounds like. Actually, that looks like a remake one too, or a repurposed one. TV trailer from 1966.
Who are seconds? Where are seconds? Seconds might be all around you, even now. Rock Hudson, in an astonishing change of pace, stars in Seconds. Rock Hudson, as a man who buys for himself a totally new life, a chance to begin again. Every man's dream since time began.
Why you're staring at me like that? Hey, John. Hey, John. Why are they staring at me like that?
They're like you. Reborn. Frankenheimer film. Seconds. Bold. Bizarre. Terrifying. Seconds.
Well, there you have it. There's more of the original.
There was a whole spate of those type of mental breakdown kind of movies back then. And
Yeah.
that definitely falls right into what was going on at the time. It's better. It's closer to what the movie is, but I think it also goes too far ahead into the film.
A little bit. John Frankenheimer, one of his earlier films from 1966. John Frankenheimer, best known as probably director of, probably Manchurian Candidate?
Yeah, I would say that's the first one that seems to pop up on most lists. Yeah.
Island of Dr. Moreau, 7 Days in May. Yeah, but Reindeer Games is
Yeah.
people always like talk about. Because did he direct Reindeer Games or was he like a producer? I think he directed it, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know anything about that movie, and I'm proud to say that.
It's fair. But he also directed Ronin and some Tales from the Crypt episodes. Scrolling down, 52 Pickup is really good. Prophecy, Black Sunday,
Which Prophecy?
1979.
Okay, is that the one with the bear?
Yeah, the one with the weird
Oh,
bear.
okay.
Yep.
Because it's either the bear or Christopher Walken. It's one of those two prophecies.
Fair. He also did the French Connection too, but not the original French Connection, as obviously we know. But Seconds was 1966. This came 4 years after The Manchurian Candidate. So he was an established. I was curious of that because I didn't actually look it up yesterday. I was kind of curious as to where in his filmography it fell.
Okay.
Because this felt like it could either be something that he did early on before he got big,
Yeah.
or, and I'm assuming it's this one, sort of a passion piece that he fell in love with that was like, I'm going to fucking make this movie, because this is not a big budget, bombastic type Manchurian Candidate type film. It is very different than that.
Yeah.
It's a weird little, like, not really sci-fi. I mean, I guess it's sci-fi to a point, but it's not like a sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
It's very grounded in a reality that they've built. So, but the story is pretty simple. You got Wilson, who is also the same person as Arthur. So it starts off as John Randolph as Arthur. He's another guy that, in a million things. Was he in? Hang on, let me scroll really quickly here. I mean, he's been in a million TV shows, a million movies. Yes, he was. He was Clark's dad in Christmas Vacation.
Oh, yeah.
He's all right, you should get up there and check the bulbs. If you need any help, I'll be inside asleep.
That's
One
fair.
of my favorite lines.
All right.
So he plays Arthur. Arthur is kind of like your boring everyday man. Goes and takes the train into the city, works at like a bank,
Yep.
comes home, has boring conversation with his wife, goes to bed, does it again.
Yeah.
But he's been getting these weird phone calls from a friend of his that passed away named Charlie. And he's like, "You're not Charlie, because Charlie's dead." And he's like, "Nope, I'm Charlie, and I'm not dead."
Which kicks off the whole mystery.
Kicks off the whole mystery. So Arthur receives an address from an unassuming man when he's getting on the train.
Yeah, that knows
Charlie
his name
says-
that he's never
Yep.
seen.
He goes, "Mr. Hamilton." And he goes, "Yes." And he just hands him this little sheet paper. So then Charlie's like, "You got the address. You need to go there."
Yeah. Knowing the premise of the film, it's pretty easy to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I knew nothing. I didn't watch a trailer ahead of time. I went into this very cold.
Okay.
So, he goes to the address and it's like a meat packing plant.
Yep.
And they put him in the back of a truck
wait,
and they're like, "All right."
They all know him by name and face.
Well, so Charlie tells him, "You need to use the name Wilson." And so they refer to him as Wilson, not Hamilton.
Right.
And so he gets there and they're like, "All right, Mr. Wilson, come with us." And they put him in the back of a truck and he's like, "Can I ride up front?" And they're like, "Nope, you can't really know where we're going."
Meet in the back.
Yep. So they bring them to this, unassuming building and bring him in. and they start having a discussion about his death. And he's like, well, I'm not dead.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, exactly. And they kind of start to explain what's going to happen. Now, at this point, if you sound like you're interested in watching this movie, there's a good Criterion version of it out.
Yeah.
Stop listening to the review and go back and watch the film and come back to the review. But I don't necessarily think us talking about it will ruin it. But it definitely, I felt like I enjoyed it quite a bit more because I didn't know what was happening until it was happening.
Right.
But again, if you looked at the trailer and heard the trailer, some of it is already kind of probably spoiled for you.
Yeah. But there is some acting in this that is like I'm not going to be able to describe the acting toward the end of the movie. In one
Correct.
scene in particular, it was just disturbing.
Yeah, I'd say.
Rock Hudson was a fantastic actor.
Yes, he was. And like, this was very against cast for him too, because he was always the like sexy, like not really, he wasn't really an action star, but he was like he was the man.
Oh yeah. Not
Also,
well, he was
very sad.
definitely a man's man. I'll give him that.
Yeah, definitely. Hid his sexuality for years. Passed away from AIDS.
Yeah.
Glad we live in a different world now where he doesn't. People don't have to hide themselves.
Yeah, that's
So,
fantastic.
Anyway, so they talk to Arthur Hamilton, and they're like, "Listen, you got to sign this contract." They drug him at one point.
Yeah.
And kind of force him to do something in a sort of blackmail way to be like, so you are going to you were suggested by somebody for this.
Yep.
Basically what we're going to do is we're going to fake your death and you're going to, we're going to change the way you look. We're going to change everything about you and you're going to start a new life.
Yep. Leave everything behind. It's basically like a super hyper witness protection program.
Just no reason for it.
Well, he's bored. That's the reason, right?
Right.
He's a dick.
So, yeah, the story is basically him. They put him through these different surgeries and they're like, it's going to hurt and it's going to suck and it's going to take a while. But on the other end of it, you're going to come out a different person. And he quite literally comes out Rock Hudson on the other side.
Yeah, they hired 2 actors instead of doing the makeup, which I liked.
Yeah. So you got to suspend some belief a little bit that Arthur Hamilton can turn into Rock Hudson. I don't know about the differences in their actual age. So let's see.
I want to say 10 years. I think I looked it up.
Okay, so he was born in 1925. Rock Hudson was born in 1925. Yeah, you're correct. 10 years.
Okay.
10 years. And they just, they look very different. They're not like, they don't look the same in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
But again, remember, this is 1966. So this is also like different special effects. But he goes through this and they're all right. So you're Tony Wilson now.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's actually no need to even have the actors look the same since they're totally changing everything about him.
Yeah.
It's kind of a good workaround for the movie. And they hit on what in body swapping stuff is always a big thing for me. They said that they did a laryngeal reconstruction, so his voice will sound different. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, hey, we replaced your fingerprints. I'm like, all right, they said it. That's fine. I can't.
Right,
you
right,
can't
right.
all of a sudden grow new different patterns of fingerprints, but we don't see any of the science behind the procedure. We see a little bit of the procedure in stock footage of surgeries, but I liked that it's so commonplace that it's just like, yeah, we changed your voice. It's okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Good.
They do. They hit on everything. They don't really miss much of anything. So you're left without question.
Yeah.
Like, all right, this is what they're doing.
And
They've done it before.
And they've done it a lot based on how easy it is. It's complicated and time consuming and dangerous, but it's common for them to do, which is fantastic.
Right. So he comes out the other side, hunky Rock Hudson. And they've created a new life for him. He's going to move to California. He's going to become a painter, but he's not actually a painter.
Right.
They have people providing the paintings, but then eventually they'll teach him so that he can be the painter himself. They actually really do a good job of covering a lot of the details here.
Yeah.
Which I was a little surprised by, because usually stuff like this, you got to kind of really like kind of put yourself out to like be like, all right, I guess so. But
Yeah.
they made it as believable as they could.
Yeah, we're not looking at like the thing with two heads over here. This is
Right.
a serious study of an older man looking at his life and not being satisfied.
Right.
And
but
it
the
gets
interesting
dark.
part of it, it's true though, but the interesting part of it is that unlike, other films of this ilk, he didn't sign up for this. Like somebody else.
Yeah. It was his friend. His friend
Charlie.
Because you find out
Essentially
later
was-
there's a recommendation process.
Right. So he was brought into it without wanting to be brought into it, but then buys into it.
Yeah.
His whole new life is created for him. But as he kind of goes through the motions of this and realizing, his life, it gets back to that, his life wasn't as bad as he thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
And he misses his old life because everything has been created for him.
Yeah. I kind
And he has-
of felt like he was a huge dick for leaving his family, just like his daughter. Like, I understand if you have a problem with your wife, but you got to talk about it. And that is addressed. I'll give it that too. But I don't see how you could leave your kid. That's me.
Well,
I'm not judging.
No, I agree with that, but they do a good job of they're like, well, what about your daughter? And he's like, oh, well, we don't really talk.
Yeah.
And they're like, when's the last time you talked to her? And he says something like it's been like 10 years since he even spoke to her.
Right.
So they're like, she lives far away. She doesn't live with us anymore. We haven't spoken in years. And they do this really good job of like, well, if you were gone, what difference would it really make in their lives?
Yeah.
And they're like, your wife will be taken care of, your daughter will be taken care of. Which this is the only time I kind of question things of like, where is the money coming from?
Well, I mean, yeah, 30,000 isn't really enough to fix somebody's whole life, even in the 60s.
Yeah, to take care of the cost of the surgery.
Yeah.
And then also to take care of everything else, unless there's but they don't mention anything about like insurance policies or like.
Oh no, they do. They talk about his life insurance, and there was something where he said that there's money for the family, there's money to pay off his bills, and then there's money to help sustain what they're gonna do. He's paying for it out of his money, it seems, and then it feels like when he starts selling his paintings, that would be his revenue income.
Right.
I don't know. There is a book
seems-
that I
it just-
think
it's
I want
still-
to read that it's based off of.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions.
Yeah, but they're
yeah,
kinda
so that gets to
small.
this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there gets to this point where he is just like he realizes that everything around him is created. His friends are created. His new girlfriend is created. Like none of it is real. And he goes back to his old home after, he's instructed not to and realizes that he's made a mistake with what it is because he wants to be able to create him, if he's going to create himself as a new person, he wants to be able to create himself as a new person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that's where this shit starts to get real dark. We don't need to get into that too much, but this is a really like this is a film, like I said earlier, like I'm really shocked that it does not show up more in those like cult favorite lists or like hidden gems, because there is some tour de force acting in this.
Yeah.
That is like, we can talk about the stuff you had brought up momentarily now.
Oh, now. Okay. So I had actually shown my wife the part where after all the surgery, he gets off the train to his new town. And there's this dude who comes up to him and says he knows him. And I thought at first, okay, this is reinforcing it, like telling him his name again and reminding him that there may be people that think they know him. I thought it was that kind of thing. But this dude was a flesh and blood cartoon character. He was ridiculously over the top in his acting. And it was kind of interesting because I don't know if it was over the top because everything we had just watched was so grim before it, or if he really did go over the top as a counterpoint to when they cut to that. I don't know. All I know is that dude was ridiculous and I liked him. But yeah, when he starts to get bored of the same old thing. Even if it's painting all day and having drunken parties at night, he's still going to get bored, which plays into the whole theme of the movie. Like, this place is there to help you restart your life. They don't tell you you only get one chance, but don't threaten the company as they're about to put you under. And that is where some of the best acting I have ever seen. And the first panic attack I've had in a long time. No, it was it wasn't full blown panic attack, but a lot of the things.
No, but I get it. I get exactly what you're saying, man.
Yeah, a lot of the things that he is going through are like existential crisis kind of things. Like, I'm getting older, I can't do what I used to do. Things aren't the same. Blah blah blah. This has to be. I have to put a spoiler on this if people are going to watch it after. So this is, I have to talk about a specific part. So
I know exactly where you're going with this. So yeah, spoiler alert. If you haven't already tapped out and watched it,
yeah,
last chance. We're gonna ruin something pretty good.
Yeah,
right here.
I think it's important though, because it can be. I hate the phrase. I hate the word, but what it means. You know, it's a triggering ending of a film if you have any kind of phobia or fear of getting older, or you don't think things are where they're supposed to be. So he goes to the place and he's like, let's do it again. I got to do it right. I'm going to make all the choices and it's going to be all me. And he wants to write fan fiction about himself, basically, and have that be real. So before I forget this. So there's the building part where he goes to after the meatpacking plant, and he's walking around. There's a room full of people all doing their own thing at desks. They're all dressed the same. It looks like a fucking clone classroom. But he's taken into another room with a dude sitting behind a desk, and he explains the contract with him and then asks him to sign it. And he's like, oh, let me think about it. And then the camera pulls back, and there's this little dude in a hat sitting there over his shoulder, telling him all nice things that'll make him feel good. But then the guy gets up and walks across over to his other side, and he appears over his other shoulder. So we get the deal with the devil, and the good and bad, the angel and devil on his shoulders is conscious, trying to convince him or not, or convince him to or not do what's going to happen. And I thought that was just fantastic, subtle storytelling. They didn't bring a lot of attention to it. It was just, this is how it is. And I really thought that was a great way to show his internal struggle.
The film does a lot of really kind of like little things like that, and they do them enough in your face that you catch them.
Yeah.
Like they're like going to the meatpacking plant as the place that's going to bring you to this place.
Yeah, because that's all they are to him. That's all he is to them. Just another job. Yeah. Yeah. All right, I'll get back to the other part.
All right.
So he goes back and he's talking about all this. He has to sit in the room with all of the people doing their hobbies. But he's kind of mouthed off to we'll call him the devil, the guy running the place. Kind of mouths off to him. He's not happy with everything that happened. I mean, he had a huge naked grape stomping party, and he finally let go of all his inhibitions and seemed to really enjoy it. Then he does some shit to fuck it up, and he is forcibly taken from his house. And that's when you know what's really going on, because when you see the people's faces change when he starts talking, it was chilling.
Yeah, it was very.
So he's in the institute or the place or the SCP containment unit, whatever the fuck you want to call this, and he's talking about it. He's like, all right, so we'll write the whole story, and he's told that he's next in line for surgery, and they bring in a stretcher and they put him on it. He's like, oh, this is for transport, blah, blah, blah. And they strap him down. He's like, we don't want you falling off. And they take him to another room. No, they wheel him down the hallway. And waiting in the hallway is a priest who starts asking him questions about his religion. And I knew what was going on right away.
As soon as you see the priest, you know.
Yeah. It took Mr. Hudson a second. But once he realizes that he's being given last rites because he's a problem and they're going to use his body to make a better life for someone else, he flips the fuck out. Like it was real.
Yeah.
He is thrashing and screaming and crying, and it is honestly some of the best terrified acting I'd ever seen. And I felt it. I felt all of it, because from the time I was little, one of the scariest things in the world to me was being somewhere where you know you're going to be executed. Not murdered or anything like that, but like a whole process of steps for lethal injection. And that to me is one of the most terrifying things, knowing that this corridor you're going down is the last time you're going to do it. Everything you're doing is the last time you're going to do it. And then you have to wait. And the way the movie ended is, it should end up on more disturbing movies lists because of the brilliant way they ended it. Because it's his story, and it ends where naturally the story should end. And this was, the end of this is a tough watch, especially if you have had a midlife crisis or anything going on. It's like Neon Genesis. You got to be in a good place to watch this, because it's going to take you down.
Well, there's the story that Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys.
Oh, that's a crazy story.
Saw this movie, and if you look at his output from 1966 on, this movie broke him supposedly, and because he identified so closely with the character, with having the same name of Wilson, and like, I don't know what year Pet Sounds was, but I feel like there's like this like mark in his career. This film is supposedly what did it, because he was so disturbed by it that it broke his mental psyche.
Yeah.
And from that day on, he questioned everything.
I had read that they had an whole album recorded, and he scrapped it because he thought
Smile, wasn't it? Smile?
Yeah, that was the name of it. Yeah, because Phil Spector is a producer on this, and he thought Phil was fucking with him because they were kind of rivals. And that's it's okay. So if the main character, right, if I was Brian Wilson, but I had a different last name, right? If I had my name as the guy in the Beach Boys and the last name in here was Bricklemeyer, like, I would freak out. That's an uncommon name.
Yeah.
But Wilson is really common. He must have he must have had some paranoia left over, maybe from all of the LSD that they did.
Well, I mean, it's not a secret that Brian Wilson struggled with his mental health his entire life.
Yeah.
So
it's too bad
if you watch
people
that
weren't there to, like,
John Cusack movie, isn't it called God Only Knows?
I don't know.
I loved it.
I don't know. I'll have to look it up.
It's whatever John Cusack plays Brian Wilson.
Okay.
And Patrick Fugit plays young Brian Wilson in it, and it's fucking excellent.
Huh.
But I totally digress. Sorry.
Yeah. So I don't know how this was received at the time. I mean, I could read about it, but
Not well.
I would love to have been part of conversations with it when it was happening, when it was out, because, like, you're not supposed to. It's not. This is a movie I'm going to remember until the day I die, and it may be the last thing I remember because of the way this movie ends. It may be the last thing I think of because it's that powerful of an ending, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that it's sad. Like some of Carpenter's work, they're not the same kind of movie, but it's appreciated well after. Oh, and I have to tell the story about why I picked this. So I've never watched this before yesterday. And when I was little, I would go to the library and I would always rent this book about sci-fi and horror movies. And there was a picture, and I knew Rock Hudson. I knew who he was. I knew that he died of AIDS, and everybody loved him, and it was a shame and all that. So when I saw a picture of him on the stretcher with the cotton and the surgical tubing holding it in, like tied around his head, and he's thrashing around, it's just one of those shots where he looks distorted. And it said, Rock Hudson in the movie Seconds, and I'm like, okay, what the fuck is that? And the picture not reminded me, but I can equate what that picture looked like to a lot of how Rubber's Lover made me feel. I got the same feeling out of that one scene from Seconds and that other one there, because it's a lot of rubber and latex and stuff. And it's that's not the kind of movie it is. It's just that uncomfortable part at the end. But still, I waited on it, and then when I started doing the show with you, I'm like, we're gonna cover this at some point, so I'll just wait so I can get a good, real reaction instead
16 years.
I've thought about. There's a lot of stuff we're still sitting on that we haven't touched yet. We'll get to it. We'll get to all of it. But yeah, it's one of those things where that image would pop up in my head every now and then, and I'd be like, I'm going to have to eventually figure out what that is. And I did, and I don't like it. But should we do the thing now, or?
Yeah. All right, Chris, do you recommend it, and what is your grade for Seconds?
I don't think I could recommend a movie higher than this. This is... I almost said tour de force. But this is some of the best lead acting I've seen, especially in a genre type film. Like, we could put it up there with Toni Collette in Hereditary, I think. That kind of that level of involvement, and like, you could tell he really believed in the story, all that stuff. It's gonna mess you up a little bit if you're not super young, and by that I mean like under 37, let's say.
Okay,
does that sound about right?
Yep.
It's sort of a mystery. It's sort of a spy movie in ways, but it all comes together to tell this one story about this one guy who will never be happy, no matter what. Mm-hmm. And I think the overall message of this film is try to find happiness in what you have. So I'm going to give this an A.
Okay.
I don't want to give it an A+ because the ending made me feel weird.
It's fair. I mean, I'm in agreement with you almost right across the board. It's high. It's a high recommend. Is it perfect? No. I think it gets a little long toothed in the middle with like the grape crushing scene.
That was long. I'll agree with you there. Yeah.
But I think it was done purposely to like kind of to make you uncomfortable of like seeing him give in to like now being this like other type of person, but then realizing that like he's not 10 years younger, and he's not, the party lifestyle is not for him, and the young hot hippie girlfriend is not for him.
Oh, and he can't hold his liquor.
No, not at all. Not at all. We didn't even mention the camera work. There's a lot of kind of like weird, almost POV over the shoulder type camera work in this.
Yep. It was fantastic,
which is
from the beginning.
And the stark black and white photography in this is also very, very good. So dark doomy score.
It's black and white. I forgot about that. And
it didn't have to be black and white in '66. That's the thing. It could have been color.
No, but I think it works because it kind of speaks to the whole theme
it definitely
of the
works.
film. Yeah.
Definitely works. Rock Hudson is a tour de force in this. I will give it an A, but I won't give it an A+. I mean, I don't think I've ever doled out an A+, and I very, very rarely will dole out an A. But this was just, it made me feel things. It made me question things. It made me like characters and dislike characters without really having to give me too much background on them. Yeah. Very well done. I'm shocked it's not talked about more in cult film circles. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it is. I'm not saying that nobody's ever brought it up.
Yeah.
But like,
but it's not.
I don't see its name
movie.
thrown around nearly as much as other films from this time period.
Right.
Like, what's the Polanski one everyone talks about? Repulsion.
Oh yeah,
that's it. People talk about that all the time. You know, there's a couple that, of course, I'm drawing a blank now, but like those kind of weird arty horror films from this time period that like this should be talked about
Right.
right along with them, and I think it's probably better.
Yeah.
So there you have it. Seconds. There's a Criterion version of it out. It's not currently available to stream. It's not even on. I don't think it's on the Criterion channel, even though there's a Criterion version of it out.
Oh,
So
that's weird. Okay.
yeah, you can buy a copy. You can buy a digital copy of it,
Yeah.
but you got to track it down. So there you have it.
Yeah.
All right, let's fast forward 7 years or so, or actually, 7 years to 1973. The Vault of Horror, which, if you've known Tales from the Crypt or any of those, this is another anthology film based on those same stories, written by Al Feldstein and the other guy whose name Gaines, William Gaines.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So, I do have a trailer here though, so let's take a look at that.
Enter death's waiting room, if you dare. Below the crypt lies the Vault of Horror, a treasure chest of the macabre, madness, voodoo, vampires, torture, and terror. All the things that make life worth leaving.
That's how it is. And how it always will be.
The Vault of Horror.
Hey, this was in color, right?
Yeah, wasn't it?
Yeah, the trailer is definitely in black and white.
Oh, okay. All right. I couldn't see it, so I wasn't sure.
I got confused there for a second. I'm like, no, this was in color.
Yeah, because Ellen said, "Hey, how come his beard and hair are different colors?" So yes, it was in color.
All right. Okay. So Vault of Horror, they put out a Blu-ray of it on Scream Factory a couple years ago.
Right.
All right. Okay. So Vault of Horror, directed by Roy Ward Baker. He worked on Asylum, The Monster Club, Night to Remember, bunch of stuff. I mean, this guy, bunch of stuff. October Man, ton of stuff here.
Yeah.
All right. Based on the stories from EC Comics, Vault of Horror, and Tales from the Crypt, written by Al Feldstein and William H. Gaines. The screenplay written by Milton Zabosky. You got Three Old Gentlemen and Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Who get into an elevator together. As we said, this is a anthology. The elevator brings them to the sub-basement for no reason. The door opens, and there's a table set up with booze and food and all of this stuff. Oh, this must be some sort of club.
Of course.
So they get out of the elevator, and the door closes, and no one really questions anything.
No.
They were all going somewhere, so I'm assuming they need at least two of the four of them needed to be somewhere.
Huh.
But then they're like trapped. They're like, there's no door. And then they're like, well, I guess we'll make the best of it. And they just sit down and start drinking.
Yeah, because there's no cell phones. They're like, somebody has to come down here eventually. Well, then they wait. Okay. I guess.
So our wraparound story is these four gentlemen around the table talking about their nightmares.
Yeah.
And it's pretty forced in the delivery of like, well, what are we going to talk about? Oh, how about your nightmares?
Yeah.
It's like, okay. So whatever. And then each
Exactly.
gentleman tells a story of one of his nightmares, and that is where the
Yeah.
separate stories come from.
It's not the worst wraparound. I gotta say, there are
No,
worse.
it's not.
There was that, there
Chris, what was the first story?
The first story was. Oh. I went over these in my head too to make sure I didn't forget.
It was the vampire one.
Right. It was called Midnight Mess or something like that. Yeah. Hold on, I'm gonna get a reference up here. And it's a short one. It's about a dude who goes to visit his sister to talk about inheritance. And
But he's a scumbag.
oh yeah, he's a piece of shit. Why won't that type in? So the dude essentially, to get all the money, kills his sister, and then she's not dead. All right.
That's it. That's it.
Harold Rogers kills a private detective he hired to track his sister Donna to a strange town. That's right. That's what sets us up with his character traits. That he is going to do something terrible and leave no witnesses. So, that's what we're waiting for. It says here, after settling down to a post-murder meal at the local restaurant. Oh, okay. So yeah, he kills Donna, and then it's vampires. This is a super short story, isn't it? What are we, like 10
Yeah, I mean,
minutes?
it's so simple. It opens with him in his apartment, and this private investigator comes in and he says, "Hey, did you find her?" And he's like, "Yeah, I found her. She's living in this weird town up north." And the only like foreshadowing you get is it was a weird place. I didn't really like it. And he's like, "Okay, cool. Here's your payment, and also, I'm gonna shoot you and take my money back."
Yeah.
Goes to the place, and it's like your standard British northern town, cobblestone streets. He knocks on the door. The sister's a house. She doesn't answer, so he goes over. He's going to go to the restaurant, but before he goes to the restaurant, a guy stops him in the street and goes, "Oh, you're a stranger here." And the guy goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, well, you're going to want to get off the streets before it gets dark."
That's right. Yep.
And he's like, "Why?" And the guy just walks away.
Right.
And he's like, "All right, well," so he goes to the restaurant. He goes to sit down in the restaurant. The guy in the restaurant looks at him and goes, "Hey, we're closing up." And
Yeah.
he's like, "What do you mean you're closing up? It's 7:00. It's dinner time." And he's like, "Yeah, we close before it gets dark."
Yep. And he
So
never
you're gonna
asks
have to go
why.
find some. No, he never questions it.
Nope.
So he goes back outside, knocks on the sister's door again. She opens the door, and she's like, "Oh, how did you find me?" And he's like, "Oh, I have my ways. Let me in." And he comes in, and he's like, "Oh, father died and left you everything. So like you have all the inheritance,
Yeah.
and I want it. So I'm gonna take it. So I'm gonna use the switchblade. I'm gonna just stab you."
Right, because there's a provision for who gets the money if stuff happens.
Right. But even at this point, he hasn't really asked about all he says is like, everyone in this town's got a problem with the dark. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, he doesn't ask why.
Nope.
It's just an
stabs this chick.
inconvenience. Yeah.
Yeah, stabs this chick, kills her, and he's like, "All right, cool. All the money's gonna be mine."
Right.
He goes outside and notices that the restaurant across the street is now open, even though he was told that it was closed. So he goes in, and it's bumping. There's tons of people.
Yeah.
He sits down, and the guy's like, "Oh, we're doing, the 3-course meal tonight or whatever." And it's, he says, "Oh, it's a souffle," whatever he says it is. And he's like, "Okay, yeah, that sounds great." Guy comes back with a red cup of, he says, tomato juice, because it looks like tomato juice.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't look like blood.
Everything they drink in here that's the quote unquote blood really honestly looks like V8, which it probably
Or
was.
tomato soup.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or tomato soup, yeah. So he takes a sip of it, and he's like, it's got a very odd flavor to it. And the guy's like, "Okay." So then he gives him the food or whatever, and he starts eating it, and he's like, "Oh, this has got a weird flavor to it too." And then the waiter kind of gives him a look,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Oh, wait a minute." And he has this rope that's covering a big mirror, and he pulls it, and it opens up the mirror, and there's nobody's reflection in the mirror except for this guy.
That was awesome. But he tells him he's
Yeah. And you're
and
like-
this is the only downside to this whole one section is I had to put on subtitles to see what the waiter told him it was. I could not make it out because he says it fast, low, and with a heavy British accent. And normally I'm pretty good at that, but this one I just couldn't get. He served him a bowl of blood clots. Ugh. But it makes sense. I get it. I understand. but the mirror reveal was fantastic. It's such a simple trick, but so easy to do. Like so effective to pull off, but easy to do.
Right.
That was great.
And his reaction was really good too, because he looks at the mirror and then he looks back.
Yeah.
Then he looks at the mirror again and then slowly gets up because he's like, oh, there's something very wrong here.
Yeah.
And what was wrong was the room was full of vampires with really bad fangs.
Some of them had great fangs, and some of them had what I'll call monster high fangs, that are fangs that hang out halfway between your lower lip and your chin. I don't
But
like
the catch
that.
is the sister then walks in
Yeah.
with the knife still like sticking out of her and she like pulls the knife out or whatever.
It was all good. It was good. Good reveal.
Yeah, it was good. And then as cheesy as it was, I loved it. So they all like advance upon him, but then we see them all drinking and we're like, oh, they're drinking his blood.
Right.
But we see him tied up, hanging upside down with a faucet stuck into his jugular vein.
Yeah.
And the waiter is filling everyone's glasses, like turning the tap on and off and giving them the glass. Like it was cheesy, but I loved it.
Oh, yeah. It was a great ending because like it's just so ridiculous that you just have to go with it. It was great. The huge keg tap thing sticking out of his neck. Not even good sticking out of his neck, but still, I didn't care.
Just like stuck to him with like tape.
Yeah, it's just a fun story that's supposed to, give you a little laugh or like whatever. And it worked.
So, yeah. And so as that ends and we go back to the guys at the table, they're all like, oh, wow, that's weird. But they all they each say this like something along the lines of like, it just feels so real. I have this dream all the time and it just feels so real. Oh, what's your dream? And then the next guy goes, and what was the next one?
The next one was the Neat Freak.
Oh, yeah, I didn't like this one.
No. I mean, it made sense. It just took a little bit to get there. Didn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not saying it's great. It was the most boring of all of them. I thought.
So basically the guy's like, he's at home and he's got a new wife and he keeps berating the wife because like she's essentially just making the home a little bit of her own. She's moving furniture around and
she wants to feel like she lives there.
Right, and he keeps yelling at her. Well, if you move the magazine basket from where my chair is, how am I supposed to get my magazines? They're all the way over there. And she's like, oh, all right.
Yeah.
And then he just continues to berate her over these little changes that she's making. He offers to make her dinner, and then we see the pantry, and in the pantry, he's got these lists of the pantry items taped to the inside of the cabinets.
Yep.
And they have check marks. And he's like, you're supposed to erase a check mark every time you use one so that we know that we need to replace it.
Yeah. So far, so good.
Yep. Okay. And then he talks about he's like, no, listen, I have to show you. So he brings her downstairs to the basement and he's got a workshop and he's got all of the nail, like this size nail is in a jar for this. This size screw is in a jar for this. Everything has its place. And that's the whole thing, is everything has its place. And she's like, well, like I can't like do anything.
Right.
So the crux of it is he goes off to work and she does what she wants during the day. Like she listens to whatever record she wants to listen to. She drinks some wine or whatever. Like she does her thing, but then realizes that she has to get everything back in its place for when he gets home, to the point where like the records have to go back into the same spots they were. And like, she then has this fumbling moment where like she just knocks everything in the house over.
Oh my God. She was either one of three people in that scene. She was either Leslie Nielsen, Mr. Magoo, or Chevy Chase. And that should give our listeners all the idea of what they need to know about how this went down. It's a fucking comedy of errors. So bad for her.
So anyway, Mrs. Banks, because she was in Glynis Johns, who plays her, was Mrs. Banks in Mary Poppins.
Right.
So she goes into the basement to get a nail to fix the frame that she broke, and then knocks everything off the wall. Yeah. And he comes down and is like, Eleanor, how could you? And starts to berate her, and she just fucking loses it and hits him in the head with the hammer.
Yeah, because it's you're wondering, like, how long is she going to put up with his shit? Because he's not nice. Like,
no, he's
not even close to being nice about it. And you're just rooting for her at that point. But you sort of aren't at the same time, right? Because she's like, just leave, just leave, go. You don't have to stay.
Right. And when there's a point where she's talking to one of her friends and she's like, why did you marry him? And she's kind of like, I don't know. Like,
that was it. That was what spurred the whole thing, was her realizing, I don't have to put up with this shit.
but the Tales from the Crypt Vault of Horror EC comic twist comes at the end where she's standing there and she's like, what was his name?
Oh shit, I don't remember.
Arthur. She's like, well, Arthur, everything has its place now, doesn't it? And each jar is like spine, hand, stomach. Like, so she cut them all up and like put each of his parts into each specific jar, which I got a kick out of that. That the rest of it I thought was stupid, but I did like and that's one of my favorite things when I used to read the EC comics was they always had this fun, like comedic, like ending to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Sort of not a pick me up, but sort of a, hey, we're all doing this for fun kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It wasn't great though.
No. And what the hell was the next one?
Hold on. There was The Painter, which I believe was the last one.
Painter was the last one.
The Rope in India.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Explain this one to everyone.
Okay. So, white guy goes to India thinking he's hot shit. And he's a magician, he tells everybody. And he sees one of these. For some reason in the 70s, the snake charmer rope basket thing was huge at the time. Like, it was all over the place. Bugs Bunny was doing it. Daffy Duck. Like, I know that's the same company, but
it's all Looney Tunes, probably the same cartoon. So
but
you're not spreading it out too much.
Tom and Jerry did stuff like this. It was a huge thing, the whole idea of being able to charm it. And I love that this is a 70s movie and they did all the stuff in camera. And you can see the fishing line for the rope, but I didn't care.
Oh, no.
I really didn't, because they sold it really well. So the guy watches this and he's like, oh, okay, cool. How much? And she's like, I'm not.
Well, you got to add that he watches another magician first.
Right. It's the older magician that he sees doing it. And he basically Penn and Teller's his jokes right in front of his audience. And I mean, fuck that guy now, because like, you don't ruin other magicians' magic, especially if you're a fucking magician. That's a dick move. Mm-hmm. So he has an assistant that you would think is his daughter, and she's in a back alley practicing, we'll say.
Yep.
Definitely. Oh shit, did you know that oh no, that's the next one, never mind, sorry. I got some names mixed up.
It's all right, it happens.
So she does the thing with the flute, and it goes straight up, and then she climbs it, and it's just all kind of amazing, and she won't sell it to him, and he kills her and takes it.
Yeah.
Basically, it's a little more than that. The wife is sort of his like assistant, sort of business manager kind of thing, because he gets her to examine it. They lure the woman to the hotel room under the guise that the wife is sick and can't move, but she really wants to see it. So they get her in the room. He locks the door. He kills her. And then they inspect the rope. And it's just a rope, and it's just a basket. There's literally no trick until he picks up the flute. And amazingly, he can play Indian tunes on the flute. I don't know his backstory. The rope starts to rise out of the thing. And the basket, and it goes all the way up. The wife climbs it, and I loved this, and I sort of love and hate that they didn't do anything else with it.
Right.
The wife climbs to the top of the rope, is talking to the husband. She looks up at what looks like through the ceiling, screams, and disappears in a flash of blue light. I'm like, okay, you have my attention now. And then we get one of King Ghidorah's necks just like choking the guy.
Yeah.
I will say, though, they did use a lot of forward and reverse of the film to get the rope to move and not sway back and forth.
Yeah.
And that was that was all right. Pretty decent.
For the time period, yeah, not bad at all.
Pretty
not
decent.
bad at all.
And it's that. It's basically it's this little morality play of like fucking let people have what they want. Like leave them alone and let them do what they want. That's what not take everybody's shit. That's not what I meant. Like people have things. You don't have to have them all. So
yeah.
But that's
You're
it.
not entitled to it just because you want it.
Right. Yeah. Which I think is a lesson that in the 60s may have actually been important. Who knows?
Yeah.
I wasn't alive then, so I can't say.
It's true. It's true you were not alive then.
Right. The next one actually is not the drawing one. It's called Bargain in Death. And it's an insurance scam where the dude's buried alive.
Yep.
And
I
this, I imagine, in the comic would be like a 2-page filler story.
Yep. Because it's very quick and pointless.
Yeah. He gets basically the zombie potion from Serpent in the Rainbow, so he appears dead, and then he gets buried, and then he's supposed to be dug up, and he gets his insurance money or whatever.
Because insurance money comes that quickly. So
yes, but then we have the beeline of the Burke and Hare wannabes. No shit, Tom and Jerry, who need a corpse. Because they're doctors, and Dr. West said, I need a corpse, so they went and got one. Basically, it's they just want to be better doctors, and they're gonna steal a corpse to do that. Okay, well, it's a horror movie; it's got to work that way, right?
Always.
So there's a partially open grave. The coffin that he's in is sort of buried, but not really, like enough for like a shovel or two for effect. And the dude sits up and he screams Alex, and everybody runs out. The two dudes run into the road and they cause a car to crash, and I didn't know it at the time because it was too fast, but that was Alex in the car. And then the gravedigger who was there to help them, they were paying off the gravedigger to get a body. They didn't really answer what do you want the body for, so that's always a question. He killed him with his crowbar.
No, it's a shovel. He cut his head.
Oh, was it? It was angled to look like the tip of a crowbar, but yeah, he kills him with the shovel, and the whole plan is just null and void, basically.
Yep.
That's a comedy of errors right there. We got a lot of Be Careful What You Wish For this week.
Yeah. I mean, this whole movie is Be Careful What You Wish For.
Yeah.
Because the final story stars Tom Baker.
Yep.
Everyone of our age's favorite Doctor Who.
Yeah. Ellen was sitting there, I was finishing up the movie, and she was watching it, and she looked up when he started talking, and I'm like, yeah, he sounds familiar, doesn't he? But he doesn't, because of the beard. The scraggly beard that he's got. He doesn't look like number 4. But I said to Eleanor, you want a hint? And she said, yeah, okay. I said, well, very shortly after this, he got 4 PhDs. She's like, oh, he's the 4th Doctor. I'm like, yep. That's Tom Baker.
Yeah, and he was he the longest running one? Because he was like mid-70s to early 80s, I thought, right?
At the time, he might have been. I don't know if any of the newer ones. Let me see.
I mean, I'm not much of a Doctor Who person anyway. I probably should go back and rewatch a lot of it.
Actually, the newer ones, David Tennant would be one of the first. He is the first one from the new Who, and he's done 105. But Tom Baker, 178.
Yeah,
he was the most, and then it's Hartnell, Pertwee, and Troughton, which is interesting.
All of Doctor Who's on Disney Plus now, right?
I don't know if all of it is, but a lot of it is. Yes.
Okay.
And it's cheesy if you've never seen it. It's cheesy, but the stories can be quite clever. So there you go.
There you go. Anyway, sorry. Continue with the story.
Oh yeah, so like I just got past the fact that Tom Baker's in it. So he's an artist. He lives in Haiti. His art dealer, who still looks for relics a decade after this with Indiana Jones. They're selling his artwork and basically keeping all the money, and he's pissed about it. He goes to a voodoo priest. His painting hand is given voodoo power. And he basically turns into like Harold in the Purple Crayon. Or
That's a
Simon.
reference.
You know,
That's
the
a
things
reference.
he draws come true. So yeah, it was really interesting how they did this. I liked it because it felt natural. He goes back to his studio. He's sitting there and he just sketches the vase that's holding, like just a clay pot type vase thing holding his brushes. And he draws. He's just a simple charcoal sketch, and they didn't have a bad artist on this. I have to say. And he rips it in half and he throws it in the trash, and the vase falls to the floor and shatters. It's like, okay, that could be a coincidence, because he knows that he asked for something supernatural. So I liked this. This was weird. He took a piece of bread, threw it on the ground, and then drew it, and then erased a corner of it. And I thought, oh, this is going to be cheesy. It's just going to disappear. This is going to be like, boop, there, bite taken out of it. But no, a rat came in, chewed away the exact proportion that he erased, and left. It didn't take the food with it, nothing. So, because he's human, and humans are stupid, he paints a cut on a self-portrait's face. And then checks his face immediately, and he doesn't have the mark on him, and he doesn't believe any of it, and then he gets cut. And he's like, oh shit, I got something going on here. All right.
Yeah.
So he goes back to London. He has a meeting with his crew, with his dealers, and they just want to fuck him over. So he's pissed, and he paints 3 portraits. And I thought this was kind of interesting how they do it, because it's sort of like a Final Destination kind of thing, because it can't be stopped once you initiate it. And the first one, he gouges out the eyes on the painting, and the man loses his eyes through nothing that could even reasonably be traced back to anybody else except the person he was in the room with.
Right.
The other guy gets his hands cut off in what is essentially an industrial paper cutter at the time.
Yeah, it's a guillotine.
Yeah.
Even like.
Oh. And then he's like, all right, and you can wait till tomorrow. And he's talking to Denholm Elliott's character. And as he's going home. No. Sorry, I got that in the wrong order.
Right, he has to go to the office first. He goes to the office with the painting.
Yes, he goes to the office with the painting, and he gets him to die. I will just say, and then all of a sudden he can't breathe, and you're like, oh well, he finished his thing. Maybe he's having a panic attack, or he's in shock, or whatever. And then you realize, wait, he had that safe delivered to his room. I wonder if he put the painting of himself in the safe so nothing would happen to it, because that
we see him put the painting in the safe.
Oh, did
they
we?
show you that? Yeah,
I must have looked away. Okay, so I knew it was in there anyway. But so what's happening is he can't breathe because the air, which doesn't make sense, is running out in the safe. I don't know how that's possible with an inanimate object, but it's magic, so we'll go with that. He barely makes it home, gets the safe open, and in the 70s, all you had were combination dials and keys.
Yep.
You didn't have that. I'll punch in a number, which is so much easier. So I thought he was going to die right there trying to put the combo in. But he gets the painting out and everything's fine. And then he realizes that he left his watch on Elliot's desk. So he knows he can't put the painting back in the safe. So he puts it on an easel under a nice skylight that looks at a building. And they do a nice slow pan up so you can see what's around, and it's a guy painting a sign, because they painted signs back then. And The doctor runs out. I bet this character really wished he had a time machine at this point because everything gets all fucked up.
Yep.
Because he goes to get the watch, and the sign painter knocks over a huge container of turpentine. And you're like, okay, good. This is going to be interesting. What are they going to do? And he gets run over by a truck, and his head gets crushed by the wheel. And they flash back to the painting. And the way the picture melted, you could say, looks like a head getting run over by a truck.
Yep.
And that's it. He's dead. I mean, it's quick. It's a short thing. But that's the last one because Tom Baker's character has been asking everybody questions the whole time. And it almost feels like he's like second in charge or he knows what's going on, but he doesn't. He has no idea. He's just being himself. And then the wraparound kind of wraps everything up. Should I just come out with it?
Yeah, go for it.
Basically, there's one man, Sebastian, who was played by, where'd he go? Where's his name? Kurd Jurgens was in this. It's just a neat name. I'm sorry. I'm just looking at it because it's fun. And basically what we get is these people are damned to tell the stories of their evil deeds for eternity. I thought this was how they all died.
Yeah.
But it's not really, is it?
No.
This is more of a purgatory situation than a hell situation, it seems like.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make sense because these aren't purgatory level crimes that they're committing.
No, and the guys like get in the elevator and like it's all very simplistic and just like don't pull at the strings too much. Like
it's based off a comic for kids. So I wasn't expecting deep storytelling. So the Amicus ones, if I remember right, they're basically just like fun, quick horror movies, like shorts.
For the most part, yeah.
They're not going to go all that deep, which is fine because after seconds, I was not in the mood
I hear you.
for anything else.
I hear you.
And I'm trying to go back here and look. I thought, what the fuck did I just watch with Joss Ackland in it?
No idea.
He wasn't in either of these, was he?
No.
Well, shit. Okay, anyway, that's confusing me because I thought he was in this because I remember looking him up. Anyway, yeah, that's the whole movie.
That's the whole movie. So let's just. All right, Chris, do you recommend and was your grade for The Vault of Horror?
It was The House That Dripped Blood. That's the one he was in. I was getting that confused because that's another Amicus one, I think. Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna recommend this. It's light, it's fun. It's sort of like maybe 4 or 5 o'clock on Halloween if you're having a party. It's an early one to throw in because it's not dark and angry. It's just goofy fun, especially the the vampire one. That's just kind of adorable.
So goofy.
I like it. I like that. So yeah, and I'm going to give this a B+. I had fun with it. It was pretty good.
All right.
It was because there weren't any except the Neat Freak one. That was like the weakest one, but the husband pushed the wife so hard and so much that like you're like, go ahead, do it. So all of them to me were kind of effective.
Yeah,
not great.
Yeah, for the most part. For me, I'm gonna give it a recommend. It's good. It's not great. I always I love horror anthologies, and for me, Creepshow is still the bar setter. Like that's like if Creepshow is an A+, where does everything else kind of fall in? Yeah. And this is a solid entry. What'd you give it a B?
Yeah, B+. I think B. I'm gonna say B+. No, B. I'll give it a B. B.
Yeah, I can go with B. I can go with B. Borderline. Straight B. Straight B works. It's good. It's not great. It doesn't do anything that you haven't seen before. There's some creative storytelling being told, and I love always like the kind of like the slight little nod at the end with the little piece of comedy or whatever that they tend to do. And this is very much like the Tales from the Crypt movie from this time period too, because it's the same type of stories.
Yeah,
I think that's Amicus too, if I'm not mistaken.
That would make sense.
Yeah, there's a lot worse ways to spend an hour and 28 minutes or whatever it was.
Oh, definitely. And I could see, and this might just be me, but the story about the vampires I could see as an inspiration for the story in Southbound where the brother goes to look for the sister and she's in this like shifted parallel dimension. And basically they're demons and vampires. And there's hidden doors and tattoos that move and stuff. It sort of feels like they watch the vampire one and they're like, let's make this serious. Which I'm not saying is a bad thing at all. Because that's an interesting way to do a story where you think you're in the right and you don't know shit. So, anyway.
All right, moving on then. I do not have a segment from Joe this week. I'm assuming he had a busy weekend, and we'll catch back up with him next week.
Him.
No, I don't think so.
No,
not after some of the stuff we put him through. But Reverend Scott is here, and I'm sure he has a whole lot to say.
Hey, I'm over here trying to do 2 or 3 segments a week, and I don't know if I'm going to have enough time
And it is not my problem.
Right.
Don't make it my problem.
Exactly.
This is literally your fault.
He might be a little slow to put things together because I don't think he's used to manipulation and liars.
It's fair.
What?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
With Reverend Scott.
It's on the loop.
Hey there, Bill and Chris. This is Reverend Scott.
I remembered that name, by the way. I'm proud of myself.
I'm proud of you too, Chris. But am I proud of the filmmakers of Bad Boys Ride or Die, the 4th movie in this franchise?
No.
Well, I'm sure you can probably guess, but I'm going to tell you anyway, right after I talk about these reviews from your Patreon sponsors.
Doom Generation, 1995.
Starring Rose McGowan and Heidi Fleiss.
Oh my God. She is the worst actress I have ever seen.
Which one? Oh, well, it doesn't really matter to me anyway.
She didn't just take me out of the movie. She took me out of liking movies for about 30 seconds.
I told you it didn't matter. Why are you still talking about it?
If you've ever seen this, you'll see, Rose McGowan's character's dialogue is the most dated 90s slang and schlock type dialogue. It was cringeworthy at the time and it was meant to be, but now it's just like embarrassing.
You just described the script of 85% of all mid-90s movies.
Yep.
I guess there was one thing about Doom Generation that did sound pretty cool. There's a character in it that was just like they had their very own Reverend Scott.
They hung with this guy for a few minutes and then they thought they could get rid of him and they couldn't.
Yeah.
So what is this movie about then?
Amy and Jordan get themselves into these situations where X comes in and takes care of them. And again, you go back to the drug addiction thing, whereas like, oh shit, you're in trouble, but don't worry, your good buddy's gonna bail you out.
Your good buddy, drugs.
Sounds pretty sweet. I'm sure that didn't lead to any problem for these lovable characters.
The problem with this movie, is it does exactly what Greg Araki wants it to, and that's makes you hate everybody and not care and hope bad things happen.
Yeah.
It's almost as if you guys didn't like this movie.
So if you want to see a film about irresponsibly having sex teenagers, that's not a sentence, then this isn't a bad one.
I don't. So I give Doom Generation a D-, but the review gets an A-. Congratulations. After that, we go back in time a few decades for the
1977 film Wizards.
I've heard of that one. Who made it?
Ralph Bakshi, legend in the animation world, right?
Yeah, he's a legend. But why?
Good question. Too bad you guys never answered it. I guess unless you count the connection you made between Wizards and another one of Ralph's movies.
The actual villains in both movies are Nazis.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that's weird.
It is weird.
I agree. Weird. So what's this weird thing about?
World War III and IV, something happened, and then these two kids are born. But there's a society of mutants that mutated from the radiation, and they will never be human again. And then there's the fairy folk and wizards and shit, because that's how evolution works.
I agree again. That is how evolution works. What year did this take place? Like 2003 or something?
So it's 3,003,000 years in the future. And come on.
I mean, that's commendable at least. But let's get back to these fairies. Anything more you can tell me about those?
There's the scene where the fairy all of a sudden turns evil, and you're like, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
And then when they find her again, she's like, oh, sorry, I was possessed. And they were like, oh, okay, cool.
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
The big titty fairy.
Yeah, that's the important part. Thank you. Anything else before I grade this?
The character design in this is just disgusting.
Yeah, but at the end, Avatar calls the Black Wolf a son of a bitch and shoots him twice with a handgun. So between that and the big titty fairy, Wizard gets an A. The review gets a B+, because the movie was better than your review. Oof, that's rough. So that just brings us to Bad Boys Ride or Die. I went to AMC theaters to watch this with the lowest expectations possible. So low, in fact, that I didn't even look up the franchise again to realize that I wasn't seeing part 3. This was part 4. I've never even seen the third movie in this series. And you want to know something that's kind of amazing?
All right, tell me.
I never once was lost on what was going on in this movie. I mean, spoilers for Bad Boys for Life, which was part 3, and might I add, my buddy mentioned, why the fuck didn't they wait and use that title for part 4 and just make it Bad Boys number 4 Life? What were the filmmakers thinking?
That was not spelled out.
No?
Ray.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, of course it was. Of course it was.
So anyway, spoilers for part 3, but apparently Joey Pants, their captain or whatever, gets shot and he dies. And they're all sad. And the drug cartel guy that they put in prison in that movie turns out to be Will Smith's biological son. Oof, that's awkward. And I thought I just kind of forgot about all that stuff because part 3 was like 4 years ago. Nope, I just had never seen it.
But I'm going to say...
So anyway, back to this one. My expectations were in the shitter. I was ready to rip this movie a new asshole.
That's just what I'm doing to keep myself entertained.
I mean, did you see the awful jokes in the trailer? The Reba McEntire shit? Oh my God.
I don't see that as clever anymore.
No, not at all.
It's just...
Not at all.
All right, fine.
Low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
On the ground, rotting.
Yeah, next to the dead horse.
Here's the thing. Martin Lawrence is usually pretty annoying in these films. But in this movie, he has a near-death experience early on and finds out that it's not his time to die and spends a majority of the film feeling invincible. And it's kind of hilarious.
But yeah, this guy's a fucking freak.
In fact, with the exception of some of the normie jokes that are in the trailer, most of the comedy in this kind of hit right on the money. I mean, it wasn't just me either. I mean, pretty much the whole theater was laughing right along with it. And so if you've seen the trailer, then you kind of have a good idea what this is about. The bad boys this time are really the bad boys because they've been framed for murdering police officers. And they got to work with Will Smith's criminal son and break him out of his prison box that he's in and make sure they can try and get out of trouble. And Jacob Scipio, I don't know how you say his name, but he plays the son. And man, does he have some fucking brutal fight scenes in prison. Because basically someone puts out a hit on him and he gets attacked by a bunch of dudes while they're in the in the lot outside working out and by the basketball hoops and all that stuff, and he's like hitting people in the head with kettlebells and fucking knocking weights through their chests and stuff. I mean, just blood everywhere. It's pretty gnarly and it's a fucking good fight. In fact, most of the action in this is better than really it ever has been. I think it's likely due to the fact that Michael Bay is not directing and only has a cameo as an asshole in a Porsche, a part that he was born to play. I found myself watching part 4 in a series that I hadn't even seen the rest of and thoroughly enjoying it.
It's easy to be like, fuck this movie.
Right.
But it's not bad, you know what I mean?
Right.
Eric Dane plays a pretty competent bad guy in this. He does enough to be a threat throughout without really bringing down the pace of the film or anything. So luckily they avoided the
We have to go stop this guy.
Yeah.
And it's boring.
and focus more on the running from the cops and clearing their name stuff. You know, the
situations I would never let myself get into.
So oddly enough, I'm actually going to recommend Bad Boys Ride or Die, even though it should have been called Bad Boys for Life, with a 4. What the fuck, guys? In the category of, like, action comedy films, especially recent ones, I'm going to give this an A-. I had a lot of fun with this movie, and it shocked me. So, have you seen the new Bad Boys? Did you hear my review and think,
well, that guy was wrong?
Well, then let Bill and Chris know about it, so they can make fun of you for your terrible opinion to the point that they feel bad about it.
We did that on the show.
We did.
That was bad.
It was.
Okay.
And eventually Bill and Chris will have been making fun of you so much, they forget they're even supposed to be reviewing movies.
Okay, well, we did what we wanted. But now what do we do?
So I look forward to the feedback. And as always, peace and love, guys. Outside the Cinema with hosts Bill and Chris.
Gets very sexual, but they both start off as virgins.
But then it gets really complicated.
So I'm going to have to talk to this guy now instead of just fuck him? Shit. Story of my life.
Well, there you have it. Oh, another week, another show. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you very much for hanging out with us. Join our Patreon at patreon.com/outside the cinema. Get access to the show archives, all the exclusive music episodes, and all, I mean, there's tons of stuff, man. It's all there, man. Just check it out, bro. Facebook group, Facebook page, at OTC Bill, at Cthulhu. That's really it.
Yeah.
I got nothing else.
No, me either. I'm good.
Cool. We'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, bye.
Later.